You're very welcome to episode 37 of the Scaling Your Business podcast. On this episode, I am joined by Andrew Whitaker, all the way from County Cork. Andrew is the founder of Culture Co-working. Andrew, you're very welcome to the podcast.
Rian, thank you very much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Delighted to have you. As usual with guests, we go back to the start. Were you born in Cork?
I was born in Cork, yeah. So I've been kind of living there all my life, really, yeah. So I lived in Dublin for about 4 years when I was in college, but apart from being an American and Australia on the G1s and traveling, I'm a Cork man, kind of lived there all my life.
Nice. And there's a couple of questions around growing up in Munster and abroad and Dublin as well. We'll get to them. But sticking with the young Andrew, have you got any standout favourite memories of growing up in Cork?
I suppose it's such a nice place. It's a small place. Like we say, it's a village. And I have friends like 4 years old with the same primary school, same secondary school. And now I'm 40 in July with that same kind of friendship and stuff like that. And all my family was around me as well, my cousins. So I kind of grew up with a lot of fun as a kid. It was a great environment. And it was funny, we were talking about what it was like in the 80s. My friends and just the memories. And we said, it was kind of all grey and how, the economy wasn't great at the time. But we just really remember the 90s, and we kind of remember the switch. Like I remember New Year 1989, 1990, and just going to a new decade and how everything changed. And like we went from this grey colour to the luminous colours and everything. And it was weird. It was kind of like this whole different change in Ireland, and we kind of lived through it. So.
It's a beautiful county, Cork. I've been many times. I've stayed over many nights in Cork. For our international audience or some of our Irish people who may have never been to Cork, if they were to go to Cork and had a full day, what one thing would you say that they've got to check out and got to see?
I suppose if they arrive in Cork City, grab their breakfast in the English market, and then, for lunch, head out towards Kinsale. If you like food or if you like nice walks, it's 30 minutes outside Cork City. It's just a lovely little village. And then, for the afternoon, you have great beaches. So if you want to go for a swim or kind of surfing and stuff like that, it's just, we've such a good coastline in Cork that I recommend getting out, seeing our beaches.
Absolutely. Sticking with young Andrew before we move on to your time in Dublin, I'm curious to know, who do you think had the biggest impact, and it could be multiple people, on you growing up in Cork?
In terms of business or in general, really?
In general.
I suppose it's Cork is such a sporting place, like that you follow the sports stars. Like, I've grown up with like Roy Keane, Dennis Irwin, Sonny O'Sullivan. You watch these guys and they're winning at international level. Like they're the best out there, and you're kind of like, I want to be in that. Like you want to play soccer, and then afterwards, Munster rugby, started to really develop. And I was a bit older for that, but you see what a group of say 15 people that weren't on paper stars, but they played for the jersey and what they achieved, and for Munster to be European champions, to come from that area, for us to be the best in Europe and have world-class players, that was something you did look at and say, wow, that's brilliant. They're world-class. We can get to that level.
Roy Keane, Dennis Irwin, Sonia Sullivan, Munster rugby. If you could only watch two sports for the remainder of your life, what would they be?
Rugby, and I'd have to say hockey because I play a lot of hockey. So I'm still playing at my age, but I grew up kind of from 7. I was playing hockey all through, and I have a lot of friends, and I know a fair few guys in say the Irish men's team and stuff like that. So I'd have to give them the shout out.
I know that when you were at DIT, you were playing in the Irish College's hockey squad. What got you into that? Because that's not one of the most popular sports in Ireland.
No, I suppose it's a school. Like I went to St. Luke's in Douglas, and we played hockey and soccer was my first love. And then I went to Ashton, and I suppose I looked at Ashton, and it was unique. We had about 16 guys who were really good at hockey, and it was a hockey school. So I just kind of stuck with the hockey, stopped playing soccer, even though I loved playing it kind of for fun. Played hockey, then went to Harlequins, my club, great club, and a lot of my friends from school went up there as well. And then DIT, it was I wanted to play in college, and you could play in college while also playing for your club back in Cork, so there was no conflict, so I didn't have to give up. And that worked. And then the Irish colleges, we would go to Holland in 2001, and that was a great experience. And you're playing semi-professional sides, so for us it was like a huge step up. But the experience was brilliant, you know, and just to meet these guys. And hockey is such a small community that you kind of know everybody, and it's a great circle of friends. Like, and there's guys I've been playing with since I'm like 10, and I'd still see them, you know. And now we're moving into the masters level of hockey, so we're playing into pros, and like you're going up to the all around Ireland, and you're playing guys from Ulster, Leinster, and it's a very good competitive level. Okay, it's a bit slower. Like for us, we're not
Yeah.
chasing after 18-year-olds, but the guys still have the skill levels, and it's just great fun. And you know, your competitive juices are always there. It doesn't end. You know, when you get over 40, you're still as competitive, and that's what I like playing. Social side is also very good.
I actually went to see a hockey game before in Finland, and I thought it was amazing, incredibly entertaining. And I've since been over to America, and several times, 4 or 5 times a year. Whenever I go over, I do try to get to see a hockey game. I've referenced that you played Irish colleges hockey squad. You're a Munster rugby fan. You've touched on. I know that you're a member of the Monkstown Bay Sailing Club. You're into hiking as well. What's one thing that you're into or curious about that not a lot of people know about you?
It's probably my guilty pleasure, and that's the Eurovision. For some reason,
Eurovision.
yeah, I love the Eurovision. I actually went to the Eurovision in 2010 to Norway and Oslo, and I had a ball. Like I don't know what it is. I think it's just such entertainment. Um,
Oh, interesting. Was that heavy metal rock band that won that year that you said you went to?
no, that was the year Nina, I think Satellite won from Germany. Lordi, the Finnish band, they were about 2000. I'm showing my knowledge here. I actually,
Yeah.
it's no. Eve Kavanagh was there from Ireland, and we were at the semi-finals. She got to the finals, so it was great. But it's just a wonderful experience. Yeah, it is. It's my guilty pleasure. A few people know that, but you know, it's I get embarrassed about it.
Interesting. No, no, absolutely no shame. You've touched on that you lived in Australia. I have to ask, I spent a year living in Perth. What part of Australia did you live in?
I lived in Sydney on Bondi Beach, or County Bondi as a time. Like, you know, so many Irish people there.
Yeah.
It was a ball though. I loved it. Like, I was on Carlua Street, so the beach was 10 minutes away from me, and every day after work you're onto the beach. It's just brilliant.
That might be the answer to my next question. Have you got any favorite memory from your time in Oz?
It's I suppose traveling, but like I played soccer for a team called North Sutherland Rockets, and it was great. So they got to meet like a lot of Australians, and I got into watching rugby league with them and stuff, and I got to see the real kind of Australia experience. And we traveled around, we did Gratian Road together and stuff like that. When a lot of guys I met, Irish guys, they would just stage in Sydney or stay with the same group. So I went out on my own, and I got to meet a load of different people. And like, I remember when we did Gratian Road, there was two Australians, one English, Austrian, was myself. You know, so it was a nice range of different nationalities. You get to know everybody that way. But I think it was just a soccer. I started off and I was just crap. But over the season, I got better, and I got to know the guys, and they kind of, I earned their trust and respect. And towards the end, it was just a ball. Like, and then we'd have the, you know, barbecue after every game and stuff like that. It was just a really good, fun social side, a great way of being in there when you're on your own.
Yeah, I certainly had some great memories there as well. I like that you say that you went to explore parts of Australia, unlike some Irish. I spent most of my time on the West Coast, and I had an Australian friend that said to me one day, "Do you want to go to my family home in the outback?" And it was maybe a 6 hour drive. And at one point, we had passed a signpost about 50 minutes prior. And my friend Chad said to me, "Do you remember the signpost we just passed about almost an hour ago?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "That was the start of the land of my next door neighbor. And we've got another 45 minutes to drive to the end of the land of my next door neighbor," which I was told, like, you'd never find that in Ireland, that you could drive. Like, his next door neighbors, one richer next door neighbor that had a helicopter to get from one end of his
Yeah.
land to the other. It was that big.
Like,
Go on.
the Northern Territory is up there, like, they farms the size of Switzerland and Ireland. It's just mind boggling from what we come from.
It's definitely crazy. You are a business owner. You own Culture Co-working. What's your favorite aspect of being an entrepreneur?
I suppose it's kind of the freedom, really. You know, you kind of make your own decisions. You can set your direction. You know, your successes are your own, but your failures are your own. But still, like, the opportunities to to just go and make it work, and there's nothing really stopping you bar, yourself.
Yeah.
And that's great to have that freedom where you can say, look, I wanted to go as big as I can or as small as I wanted to. Okay, bar the pandemic, normally you have that control, but I think it really is just make my own decisions.
Nice. Good answer. Look, this one, I didn't know whether to ask this question because I don't want people on my podcast to sound like a parrot. By that, I mean repeating questions that they get asked on other podcasts. But I've got it. Your location that you're in is steeped in history. It was where Henry Ford opened the first purpose-built factory outside of America in 1917. It must be pretty cool knowing that you own a piece of the where Henry Ford set up the first factory outside of North America. How did that come about?
Well, it's great. Like, we don't own it, we lease it from the park who own the space, but came back to luck, really. I was looking for a place, and I was talking to my brother-in-law, John, and he knew someone, Dermot, who was the park manager here, and I met Dermot, and he showed me this, where we are now, and it was just a kind of perfect fit, and it was from pure luck. And then I kind of went, oh yeah, this is the old Ford and Dunlop factory. He said, yeah, it is, and where we are, I think, is kind of the old power station, because there was like holes in the roof for pulleys going up and down. Um, and then he's got all the old photographs there, but so he showed me all the history of the buildings and like where we are as a listed building. So it's great to be part of that history, but also the fact that I think now in the park itself, there's more people working than there was at the heyday of Ford Dunlop's days. So
Wow.
like the park is kind of Cork's best kept secret, but there's so
Wow.
many businesses in the area, and they're thriving and stuff like that. And like, we're in the city, but not in the city. So, you can walk from where we are to the South Mall in like 10 minutes, but then we're right next to the Lee for the marina for walking, which is all pedestrianized. And it's a great kind of spot.
I know where Monkstown is in Cork. Is it close to that?
It's probably about 15, 20 minutes by car away from it. Like, it's 10K. I've walked it a few times in Blackrock, because there's the Greenway, you can do it straight out to Monkstown, which is
Yeah.
brilliant. We're on the same kind of river, and then Monkstown's out by the harbour.
Nice, nice. I'm sure you've come up against challenges. We were speaking prior to this, over the last 18 months. What's one challenge or objection that you've come up against that you probably didn't anticipate or expect or even account for, and how have you so far tackled that?
I suppose like the biggest challenge outside of the pandemic has been, the fear you have yourself. Like, when you're going out on your own, I remember talking to someone, I said, look, I'm scared. And he said, well, if you're not scared, there's something wrong with you. You need to have that fear to kind of drive you. And if you know where you want to be, and you know where you're starting from, but it's the kind of the middle of figuring out how to do it. That's the challenge. And I find that you find out just what you're capable of, because you have to. You learn so much by being on your own. Yes, like, I've had so many people help me, but you realize just what you're capable of doing, and you figure stuff out, and everything. Like, you got to celebrate the little victories you have. I've just building toilets for me. Like, I look at those toilets and say, yeah, we got this working. I said, wow, that's an achievement. Like, and it's stupid, but you're going, that's what I built. And you look at desks, and I get a kick out of people coming in that I don't know using my premises. Renting a desk. It's like strangers want to use my premises. I've created something here, and you're going, wow, like, you still have it. If you don't get that, I think you're in the wrong business. But I'm like, this is so cool that they like what I've done, and once you get that rush, it's brilliant. But believing in yourself, and you always have that kind of imposter syndrome is what to talk about. And look, we're looking to expand in the future, and we're hopefully coming to the end of this pandemic. But you always have that little bit of fear at the end, going, what if it doesn't work? What if it fails?
Yeah.
What happens then? And it's just managing that.
You talk about fear, and I think every business owner, entrepreneur has fear when they start a new project, or even in the middle of the business when they're looking to expand, especially when COVID hit. But this question is personal for you, because you spent most of your life in the car business, and now you're in the workspace business. It's a strange transition. I don't know if you knew much about the business you were getting into. If not, did that bring more fear? So I suppose my question is a two-part question. One, did you know much about the business you're getting into? Because I'm sure that would have added to the fear if you didn't. And what was it that, how did you move from, I know you spent time at Avis in Australia and Ireland, and then in the family business, but why such a 180-degree switch?
Well, I suppose I always wanted to go out my own, and like my family, we're kind of an entrepreneurial family. Like we've in motor trade now, but we were in horse and carriages. We've been in the hatcheries. We've been in butter, paper, iron. So there's a history of all different kind of things that the family has done, whether it's direct family or cousins or nephews and stuff. And I didn't do much or know much about co-working as such. I kind of looked at it and I said, okay, this is an interesting concept. I think this will be something that would work. Um, like when you're in the motor trade, you have a very kind of specific set of skills for that industry. And I said, what
Yeah.
can I transfer from motor trade into another industry? Because I wasn't going to be able to work in motor industry because of the family connection and stuff like that. So I knew I had to go something different. And I kind of felt that co-working is like my work-life balance at times is skewed. You know, in the motor trade, you can be working 6 days a week for the first 3 months. And I figured, you know, the concept of 9 to 5 job is it's dead. You know, people want the flexibility. I have a young daughter. I want if there's someone like me who's looking to have somewhere where they can work while be able to kind of drop their kids to school or spend time with them and work the hours that work for them and their family. I said, there's got to be more people like that out here. So I kind of did a small bit of research, looked at a few things, met a couple of other space owners, and I kind of went, yeah, I think this is what you're doing. So I said, let's go in a slightly different way. And I suppose the main thing I was going to look at was flexibility. So the 24/7 access, the free parking on site, I put the showers into the work-life balance. So you can come here and this should have everything you need for when you're outside of the home.
Yeah.
But also allow you to have a very good work life, home life and stuff like that. And then when I was looking for the industry, I kind of said, okay, got to be something that can't be replaced by the internet and is scalable. And I thought that co-working was certainly going to grow. I, I thought what's happening now is probably was going to happen 5 years. You know, I didn't think it's going to happen so soon. The pandemic has definitely accelerated the change to remote working and to hybrid working. And like none of us really know what the future exactly is going to be in terms of offices. Like people will go back to offices. I have no doubt because they wanted that. Some people want to work from home full time. But there's definitely an area of people who go to the office a couple of days or maybe co-working space a couple of days. And we're positioned for that. And that's where I think that culture will grow. And I said, look, you know, from the motor trade, I deal a lot with people. I'm very good with people. Culture is all about dealing with people. So I said, look, that's probably the key thing. And I took a chance and I said, it's either going to fail quickly or survive very quickly. You'll know within 6 months. And I said,
Yeah.
yeah, trust your gut. And that's what I did.
Respect, respect. For anyone who looks at your LinkedIn, it would be easy to know that you are a learner and you like to invest in yourself. You know, you went to DIT 1999 to 2003, studying business information studies. You've done an MBA in UCC, and you've done a lot of others since. There's a longer list than most in terms of universities or colleges that you've been to. You've also read a lot. You read a lot. You read 52 books last year. I've got to ask you, what's your current book you're reading, and what's your favorite book you've ever read?
Okay, I can answer the first one easy enough. I'm reading two at the moment. I'm reading the Robert Caro's biography of Robert Moses, the power broker, which is about the building of New York and the parks and everything, and how it's like 1,000 pages. Great book, but you know, I'm kind of plowing through that. And then I'm reading another book, Mine's Bigger, which is a story about is it Tom Perkins building the Maltese Falcon, the largest clipper. So a big yacht, like so. You're right. I love reading, and I suppose that I'm kind of very much like Warren Buffett, Mark Cuban, Bill Gates. You know, they say you know, try and read a book a week, and I try and do that because it's like compound interest. You learn so much from everybody, and I listen to podcasts and like your podcast. I get an awful lot from you and your guests, and I kind of have that in car when I'm driving to work, or I might be going for a walk. So there's always an opportunity to get so much. In terms of a favorite book, it's hard. Like there are the kind of the classics. Like I loved Lord of the Rings growing up as a kid. Some of the like the Freakonomics series, I read those because they make you think about things that you think are pretty straightforward, but in a very
Yeah.
different way. And I like that. I like when someone kind of comes up with something and going, "Whoa, this is weird." Like one of the books that I really liked recently is Utopia for Revis, you know, by
Okay.
Thomas. Bergman, I think. And that's just very practical about how we can kind of do things a bit better and learn from other countries and stuff like that. And that's the mindset I have, is that everybody I meet will learn something from them, and you never stop learning. And if you do, like you have a problem, and that's why I go to these courses, because you learn from the course you're on, but you also learn from everybody in the class.
That's a good mindset to have. I personally like physical books that I could get my hands on and
Yeah.
read. But I was talking to a friend recently, and this friend is an incredibly high achiever. Every second of the minute counts. I'm not necessarily like that, but he told me of an app. I haven't used it yet, called Blinkist, which essentially condenses the books into the key learnings in 15 to 20-minute audiobooks instead. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, or for any of the listeners. Okay. What continues to drive you? Because you invest a lot in yourself, whether it's the books or the university, things that you go to. I'm sure there's other ways you invest in yourself as well. But what continues to drive you?
Supposed to be better. Just simply, always improve something. And I take, my father told me one very good piece of advice. He said, every day I go into work, I try and do one thing better, or try and add one new thing. And that's it. Like the big changes happen at the start, but if you want to keep improving, you just gotta keep making the small changes, and eventually they add up to something very good. And whether it's been culture being better, or myself being better in terms of decisions I make, or even on the sports pitch, like I'm walking off 40, still the hockey pitch going, okay, I can do this better next week. I can try this. Or once you have that mindset that you always can improve and can get better, I think that's what drives you forward. The danger is like that, maybe you don't celebrate your successes. And I've done that in the past where, things have gone well. Like I said, all right, that's done. What's next? So you need to kind of balance it and say, yeah, okay, look at this and say, well done, you achieved this, but still have to say, look, what am I going to do the next day?
Yeah. I saw it on your LinkedIn. I'll regret it if I don't ask. Who do you think is better, Sexton or O'Gara?
It's a very tough question. Like I suppose I got to know Agar. We had him in a Volvo when I was there as a brand ambassador. And I got to know him pretty well, and I knew this guy was going to be a brilliant coach, because his mindset, like he's a bit like Roy Keane in the sense that they know what they have, but they work and they improve and improve and improve it, and mentally they're so strong. Like Agar said one great thing to me. He said, if you don't back yourself, how do you expect anybody else to? And that was after what happened in the second lines test in 2009. I was talking about that. I said, yeah, it happened, but you have to keep back yourself. So, like in terms of mental, O'Gara streets ahead and what he achieved with that Munster team and with Ireland, he's a legend. But you look at Sexton, and in fairness, Leinster are a completely different side without him in it. He's so durable, he's so brave. He's a guy that is driving the standards on the pitch the whole time. And when you play with people like that, it makes you better. And yes, like at times he's annoying, and I hate to see him in the blue against us when we're in the red. But you have to respect what he's done. And I hope he makes Alliance. I think he should be the 10. And I was thinking, my God, this guy is kind of too old, but the season he's had, and he makes such a difference for the two. It's hard to say who is better. Like they're.
Let me ask you it this way then. They've both had two phenomenal standout drop goal kicks, O'Gara against Wales and Sexton against France. If you could relive one of those moments, which moment would it be?
O'Gara.
O'Gara. Okay.
Yeah, that was just the pressure kick. And O'Gara, like in that situation, he'd be going, give me the ball. And if you look at his thing, like he's just a history of making the clutch kicks. And it's funny, he learned from what happened in Northampton, and he built on it, and he became such a pressure kicker. Sexton, O'Gara's a better drop goaler than Sexton. So unfortunately, I'll have to go for O'Gara as well.
Fair. For anyone who wants to see those clips, I Sexton against France and O'Gara against Wales, I'll leave a link to them below. You can check them out. I'd like you to imagine it's the end of the decade, so it's now 2030, and you're looking back on the last 9-10 years. You can answer this personally, professionally, or a mixture of both. What would you like to have achieved looking back on the last 10 years?
I suppose I'll go with the easy one, which would be culture first. I'd like to be kind of multiple locations, maybe even a couple of international, just to really grow the business to the potential of it. Myself, then I'd like to be kind of involved in whether it's the the local Cork economy or the national level, trying to give back to people who have helped me and just say, this is my experience and the knowledge that I have, and help other people come along. And that's really where I want to be, kind of happy. Like I'll be 50, the 40 to 50 is kind of the crucial 10 years of your life. You have the experience, a bit of experience, but you also have the energy to really go for stuff. And that's where I want the next 10 years to really see what I can achieve and use my ability. And I suppose that's the worst thing. You don't want to finish your career or say, I never achieved what I should have, if you don't give it your best shot.
You've got a young daughter now and a wife. I don't know if you have any animals, but pretend all of them are safe, but your house is burning down and you can save one item, one item only. What is that?
It's probably the family album, really. It's the photos. The lockdown have taught us one thing is like, you could have all the money and everything, but you can't do it without, the important things. Like it started lockdown in March. I lost a customer. Lockdown happened. 80% of my business went in 4 days.
Wow.
My father-in-law died in the same week. So all that stuff happened. And like the only stuff that, really resonates is losing my father-in-law. And so this time I spent with my family over lockdown. Everything else you get past. So family has been kind of really struck home as the most important thing. And yes, it's been a horrific 12 months for everybody in business, but we'll get through it. Say if culture didn't work out, we'll go again. But you can't replace your family.
I like that attitude. I'm going to squeeze in one final question. COVID's lifted, pretend it has, and you can travel anywhere. Is there any location that you're dying to go to?
Yeah, New York, hopefully. We'd love to go to New York for my 40th birthday in the summer. So I don't know whether we'll be able to do that or not, but so we have to wait and see. But I love going to America. It's great for kind of a couple of weeks to get the kind of the buzz and the whole can-do attitude. I still love coming back to Ireland, but America is, I just find it refreshing, and you kind of get a bit of a lift in saying, yeah, these guys have done it with their company, I can do it with my company.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I wish you all the success in the future. Tip my hat to you for what you've done over the last decade. And I hope to have you back on in the future in, let's say, 5-10 years back, looking back on what you've achieved over the next 5 years. But for the last 30, 32, 33 minutes, thank you for being my guest today, Andrew. It's been a pleasure.
No, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and well done on your podcast series. It's superb. So thank you for having me as a guest.